Okay, good afternoon, students. In the last lecture, we started with the classification of automobiles, and we were discussing about the types of vehicles like your crossover or CUV, XUVs, crossover utility vehicles, SUVs, that is sports utility vehicles, and we did was multi utility vehicles, MUVs, and what was the difference between these types of vehicles. Next, the classification is based upon the type of suspension system we are using. Uh, Based upon the suspension type of suspension, it is of two types. One is your conventional that uses the leaf spring, and the other one is the independent that uses coil, torsion bars, or McPherson strut type of suspension system. Now, based upon the type of engine used, we can subdivide the automobiles into reciprocating type or piston cylinder type of engines, or it is called the reciprocating piston engines. Other type can be the rotary engines. The types may be the Wankel engine. It is a type of a rotary engine, and the other type can be your gas turbine. So these are the two classification based upon the type of engine. Based upon the number of wheels that are there on the automobile, so the classification can be two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, or six-wheeler. So some bigger trucks, they might come as more than six-wheeler also. That depends upon the type of load they are carrying. So depending upon the number of wheels, the automobile can also be classified. Next is what is a frame. Now, a frame can be defined as it is a rigid structure of chassis and skeleton of the vehicle. Okay. Until 1930s, virtually every car had a structural frame separate from its body. So, by until 1930s, the frame we have already seen the frame is the skeleton of the body upon which the all the other parts are attached, like the engine or the your suspension system or your transmission system. Okay, so all these parts they were, and even your seating. So all these parts are attached on, and the body of the vehicle also. So the skeleton uh, of the automobile, on which the all the parts, all the other parts of the automobile are attached, that is known as the frame of that automobile. Okay. Now, what are the various functions of a frame? It is used as a base for mounting the engine and the transmission. That is the first one. Second is to carry the load of passengers and goods, to withstand thrust, stresses, and torques, to accommodate the suspension system. Now, also to resist the centrifugal force. This is while when the vehicle is turning, so the frame it acts as a resistance to the centrifugal force. Okay, the centrifugal force will have the effect of throwing the goods or the passengers out of the vehicle. Okay, so the frame makes arrangements so that this centrifugal force uh, makes as a safeguard from throwing the passengers and the goods out of the automobile. Okay. Last is it withstands the bending and the twisting stresses. Okay. So if the say vehicle is moving on a rough road, so it will have say heaps and say ridges in it. So when the vehicle is moving on a rough road, so one vehicle may be high up and the other vehicle may be in the downward position. So a torsional or bending movement that exists between the say front and the back wheels. and this whole stresses, all these stresses are negated by the frame of the vehicle. Now, what are the requirements of a good frame? The first thing is it should be strong, it should be light in weight, and it should withstand the load that is being put on the vehicle. Second is it should resist the distorting forces. तो जो भी bending forces या torsional forces लग रही हैं vehicle के ऊपर, तो it should negate those forces, it should resist those forces, and those forces should not reach the passengers of the vehicle. So this is the function of the frame and the requirements of a good frame. So types of frame, if we look at, the first one is your conventional frame. So in the bottom you can see the conventional frame. Most of the heavy vehicles, they are built using this conventional frame. It is made up of steel sections, 2 long side members, 5 to 6 cross members joined together with rivets and bolts. Now here you can see these are the long sections. 2 parallel long sections are there, and in between cross members are attached at certain distances, and these both are attached with the help of rivets or bolts to make the this conventional frame of the automobile. Now these cross members are attached to increase the strength of the frame. Now the front of this frame is inswept, that is, from the front the distance between the 2 parallel sides is less, and at the bottom this is more, the distance is more. Now the front is inswept, or it is narrow, to accommodate or to facilitate the steering lock, pivoting and swinging of the front wheels, and the rear is upswept, that is, it is broader at the rear to withstand the vertical movement of the rear axles, plus to accommodate the road bumps and inequalities. So all these things are kept into mind. That is, at the front the distance between these 2 members is small, and at the back it is large. So these are the reasons why they are kept small and large, that is, inswept at the front and upswept at the back. Second type of frame is your semi-integral frame construction. Here you can see that this dark blue portion, this is the part of the frame that is attached to the body of the vehicle. Okay, so in this we have semi, that is, the body of the vehicle is integrated into the frame part of the vehicle. So load on the vehicle is transmitted to the body structure also. So in this type of frame, some load of or that is there on the automobile, it is transmitted to the body structure also. In the conventional frame, all the load is transmitted onto the frame part. But in semi-integral frame construction, some of the load is carried by the body structure also. Rubber mountings are placed by relatively stiff mountings, heavy when compared to the conventional type used in American and European cars. Okay, so this type of semi-integral frame construction, it is heavier than the conventional type. This type of frame is mainly used in American and European cars. And the third type is your unitary, or it is also known as frameless, or it is called the integral type of construction. So in this case, the body of the car or the is made in such a way that this body acts as the frame as well as the body of the automobile. So nowadays, this type of construction, frame construction, is being used in modern cars. This is known as frameless or chassisless, or it is also known as mono or unit construction. So the chassis and the body, they are integrated into each other totally, fully. The floor assembly and the frame forms one integral unit. Heavy side members are eliminated. So heavy members are eliminated, and by eliminating the heavy members, the overall weight of the vehicle is reduced. This type of frameless construction is normally incorporated into small passenger cars. Okay, floor is strengthened by cross members of the body, and all are welded together. So there are no temporary joints. All permanent joints are there. No bolts and rivets are there. Only welding is done. Okay, so that makes the structure more solid and durable. So this is your frameless or integral or unitary or mono type of construction. Okay. Now, the question comes is, what is the difference between a chassis and a frame? Okay. Now, the chassis, you can define it. It is the minimum requirement of a vehicle to move it. Okay. So the minimum requirement of a vehicle. So minimum requirement kya hai? It should have wheels, it should have suspension, it should have frame, it should have a seat, it should have steering system, it should have transmission system, it should have the oil tank, fuel supply system. So this is the minimum requirement of a vehicle. So with this minimum requirement, the vehicle can move. Okay, it should have engine also, obviously. So this means that frame fitted with engine, tires, steering, brakes, etc. So this, all these things come together to form the chassis. So this diagram on the left hand side on top, you can see this is the diagram of a chassis. So the body of this vehicle is not there. The body is missing. Okay. So without body, this vehicle can move in the forward direction. So this is your chassis. Now what is frame? It is the basically the skeleton of any automobile. Okay, it is basically the body of a vehicle, that is all other parts are fastened to it. So this on the right hand side, the diagram, this is the frame of a automobile. So all the other parts, they are bolted or riveted or welded with this frame to make this into a complete vehicle. Okay, so you can say that a frame is the skeleton of a vehicle, automobile, without the mountings. तो इसमें क्या है, कोई भी इंजन नहीं है, सस्पेंशन नहीं है, कोई भी wheels नहीं है, transmission system is not there, nothing is there. So only the skeleton is there. So that is the frame. So chassis, on the other hand, is a mounted frame plus all the running gear like engine, transmission, drive shaft, differential, suspension, brakes, everything that is attached onto the. So this is the difference between the frame and the chassis. The frame is just a skeleton with no mountings on top of it. Chassis is the minimum requirement for any vehicle to move, okay, autonomously. So this is the basic difference between a chassis and a frame. Next is different engine positions. Now engine can be placed at different positions inside a vehicle. So the first case we can take up is if the engine is placed in the front of the car. Okay, so that is in the front bonnet, you can place the engine. So that is in front of the driver's seat. Okay, so front engine placement is there. This type of engine arrangement is more efficient drivetrain. It has more efficient cooling system, and it is easy to service because front may you will get more space for servicing. Even when the car is moving in the forward direction, the air will pass through the radiator vanes, and the cooling of the engine will be more efficient. Okay, so in this type of arrangement, two types of configurations they come in. That is front engine, rear wheel drive. The top diagram, this diagram, you can see that the engine is placed at the front, but the transmission with the help of this shaft and the differential, the power is transmitted to the rear wheels. So this means this type of configuration is known as front engine rear wheel drive. Now if the engine is at the front and the power transmitted is to the front wheels, like this diagram at the bottom, so this type of configuration is known as front engine front wheel drive. So this is the basic difference. Engine in both the cases is at the front, but the transmission on the top is at the rear wheels. it's a rear wheel drive, and in the bottom diagram, the transmission of power is at the front wheels or the front axle. So hence it is a front wheel drive. Now, second type of configuration where the engine can be put at the back of the car. It is known as the rear engine drive. Okay. Now, in this case, the engine is placed at the back of the car or on the boot of the car. Now, independent rear suspension system, tail becomes heavy. Obviously, if the engine is placed at the backside, the backside of the car will become heavier. Handling is difficult at high speeds. Okay. So that is a problem with rear engine drive, that the car handling becomes difficult at higher speeds. Now, large amount of space is accommodated by this rear engine, and less space or boot space is left for the passengers. Increased load will provide better grip on the road. जितने लोग अंदर ज्यादा होंगे, जितना वेट इसके ऊपर ज्यादा पड़ेगा, the traction of the wheels will be more and it will provide a better grip on the road. Okay. So this is another type of configuration. In this configuration also there are two types, that is rear engine rear wheel drive and rear engine front wheel drive is available. Next is your if the engine is placed at the center or it is the mid engine. Okay. So this type of engine is more suitably placed in high speed cars that are that produces higher that have higher bhp. Like this is an example of a Bugatti car, okay, where the engine is placed in the middle of the automobile. So this type of configuration is mostly used in sports cars. The location of the engine provides excellent weight distribution. So in both the other cases where the engine is placed at the front, so maximum weight goes in the front of the car. If the engine is placed at the rear, the weight will more weight will be at the rear of the car. But if the engine is placed at the middle, so weight distribution becomes very good. Okay, so this means car handling at high speeds is very good. Okay. So good handling and maximum traction. That traction is the frictional force between the road and the wheels, tires. Okay. So the tire that is running on the road, the grip between the tire material and the road material, that is known as the traction. So in this configuration, this traction, that is the grip of the tires onto the road, is very good. So this configuration mostly comes with, we can have only two-seater cars because engine is placed in the middle. So two-seating configuration is only possible in such type of cars. Then another type of configuration that comes is that if the engine is placed along the axial axle of the car, so that is perpendicular to the wheels or along the axis of the wheel. So if the engine is placed in this direction, that is parallel to the axle of the vehicle, then this type of configuration is known as transverse layout or the configuration of the engine. And if it is placed like this, that is perpendicular to the axle of the car, then this type of configuration is known as the longitudinal layout of the engine. So there is the difference between, this is the transverse layout of the engine and this one is the longitudinal layout of the engine. Now there are four types of as we have already discussed, the engine and drive. These can be subdivided into four types. That is, if we have front engine, rear wheel drive. Second configuration can be front engine, front wheel drive. Third configuration can be rear engine, rear wheel drive. And the fourth type of drive that comes is your all-wheel drive or the four-wheel drive. That is called 4x4. Now we will discuss the construction and working. Okay. Now, depending upon the where the engine is placed inside a vehicle, and the drive that is given to say the front wheels or the back wheels. So there are four types of configurations are there normally used. It is your front engine rear wheel drive, front engine front wheel drive, rear engine rear wheel drive, and the fourth is your all wheel drive. Okay. Now first configuration is your front engine rear wheel drive. Now in the diagram you can see that the engine is placed at the front. Okay, and the clutch and the transmission is placed here, and with the help of this drive shaft, the torque or the power is transmitted to the rear axle. Okay, now here there will be a differential attached. This differential, what it does is it divides this torque into two equal parts, and that torque is given to the rear wheels. Okay. So in the bottom diagram, you can see the engine. This red one is the engine. This pink, this is your clutch is there. This is your transmission. Then the drive shaft is there. Drive shaft is connected to a differential at the back, and from the differential, the torque is transmitted to the rear wheels. So hence this type of configuration is known as front engine and rear wheel drive. Okay. So this means engine is placed at the front, but the power is given to the rear wheels. Okay. So the rear wheels, they push the car in the forward direction, and in this case the forward wheels are just the followers, and we can with the steering arrangement is attached to the front wheels. Okay, so the front wheels help in moving the car in the right or left direction or turning the car. Okay, so this is your front engine rear wheel drive. Now, what are the advantages of front engine rear wheel drive? The first advantage is it has better handling. Now, accelerating force is applied to the rear wheels. Now, when we are accelerating, okay, in that case, what happens is the power is given to the rear wheels. So the rear wheels, they push the car in the forward direction, on which the downward force increases due to the load transfer in the acceleration. Now what happens is when we are accelerating, एकदम से जब हमने कार का acceleration दबाया, तो what happens, the front of the car it raises upwards. ठीक है, तो front of the car एकदम से क्या है, आगे ऊपर की तरफ उठ जाता है. So this means the load is more on the rear wheels. rear wheels के ऊपर लोड पड़ जाएगा, फ्रंट व्हील्स के ऊपर लोड कम रहेगा. ठीक है, क्योंकि गाड़ी एकदम से एक्सेलरेट जब करते हैं तो गाड़ी आगे से ऊपर की तरफ उठ जाती है. ठीक है, तो पीछे की तरफ क्या है, वो नीचे की तरफ हो जाएगी. ठीक है, तो दिस मींस द पावर दैट इज ट्रांसमिटेड टू द रियर व्हील्स, so there will be less loss of power because the tires, they will be firmly grounded to the road, and all the power will be used in moving the car in the forward direction. और इस केस में क्या है, the traction between or the friction force between the tires and the road becomes more, and this makes the vehicle more stable. So that's why this is one of the advantages of using front engine rear wheel drive. Okay, so this makes the rear tires better able to take simultaneous acceleration and curving than on the front tires. Okay, so this means if we are on a say a curve, we are taking a turn, okay, and plus we are accelerating simultaneously, so this front engine rear wheel drive, it is more stable as compared to front engine front wheel drive. Okay. Now this better handling is only on the dry road only, not on the wet road. Okay, Second advantage is even weight distribution. Okay, the division of weight between the front and the rear wheels has a significant effect on the car's handling, and it is much easier to get 50-50 weight distribution in front engine rear wheel drive. तो यहाँ पे क्या हुआ कि इंजन फ्रंट पे है, ठीक है, उसका वेट आगे है, प्लस जो आपका ट्रांसमिशन है, योर ड्राइविंग शाफ्ट, योर डिफरेंशियल एंड योर ड्राइविंग एक्सल, that is at the rear of the vehicle. So more even distribution of weight throughout the vehicle is possible in front engine rear wheel drive. Okay, next advantage is steering radius. As no complicated drive shaft joints are required at the front wheels, it is possible to turn them further than would be possible using the front. So if we are using front engine rear wheel drive, and on the other hand we have front engine front wheel drive, so steering radius will be less in the case of rear wheel drive, because jo arrangements hai that we have to attach in the front engine front wheel drive, all those arrangements are now at the back wheels, rear wheels. Okay, so front wheels, they are free, they only have the function of steering. So that is why front engine rear wheel drive, they have smaller steering radius. Okay, so next is there is less load on the front axle. The driving force is given to the rear axle, hence there is no need to provide complex design in the front axle. So front axle is kept simple, so hence there is no load on the front axle in the case of front engine rear wheel drive. Now what is the disadvantage of having front engine rear wheel drive? The first is there is decrease in the interior space. Okay, now in the case of your pickup trucks or trucks or buses, this interior space does not causes any problem. Okay, but in the case of passenger cars, rear wheel drives means less front leg room. ठीक है, जो हमारी ट्रांसमिशन टनल है that goes beneath the driver or the passengers, that occupies lot of space. So this means less leg space or less room for the passengers. Even the rear passengers, they will have the less leg space for them. So lot of space is accommodated by the rear transmission arrangement. Okay, in the case of rear wheel drive. So here you can see this is the decrease in the interior space. This is front engine rear wheel drive. So this rectangular section in the middle, red, that is done. This is the extra space that is accommodated by this transmission system. So this means that there will be less leg space for the passengers. So that is one of the advantages of front engine rear wheel drive. Next type of disadvantage is increase in weight, because in this case the differential is used, then is your driving shaft is used. For installing the driving shafts, you will be using the various joints are there, so this adds in weight of the vehicle. So the drive shaft which connects the engine to at the front to the drive axle at the back, it adds weight to the vehicle. So this extra weight is not good for the car's average. Okay. So that is another problem in front engine rear wheel drive, that increase in weight is there. Secondly, another disadvantage is for this configuration, the price is also high as compared to front engine front wheel drive. Front engine rear wheel drive is more costlier. So these are the disadvantages of using front engine rear wheel drive. Second type of configuration that is being used more widely for the passenger cars nowadays is your front engine front wheel drive. So in this case, engine is also at the front, clutch and the transmission and the differential, everything is at the front axle. So rear axle is free. So rear in this case, the rear tires, they are only the followers. So front end tires, they act as the driving wheels, and also they are used for steering also. Okay, so in this case there is engine, transmission, and the final drive is there. So this is the configuration of a front engine, front wheel drive. So this is my engine at the back and the front, and this is your clutch assembly is there, and the clutch assembly is connected to this gearbox, and the gearbox is connected to this differential here, and from the differential the torque is divided into both the wheels on the right and the left wheels there. So all this becomes very compact at the front. In this type of engine, engine is mounted on the front side of the vehicle, and the driving power is given to the front wheels. The power flows from the engine to the front axle. This type of arrangement has additional subtypes, that is front mounted cross engine. Now, what are the advantages? Large interior space. So in this configuration, because there is no drive shaft, nothing is there, so there is lot of space for the passengers that is available for them. There is lot of leg space, that is lot of room for front passengers and the back passengers also, because the powertrain is missing. It is all attached at the front axle. Next advantage is it is better handling on slippery surface. Okay, so it has better traction on the wet, snowy, or icy surface. Okay, so this type of arrangement is more suitable, has more traction and more say better handling on wet surface, snowy, or icy surface. Improved drivetrain efficiency. Now, in this case, because there is no drive shaft, so this means a long shaft is missing. So the losses of the torque transmitting from the front to the back of the vehicle, there will be less loss of power. So more power can be given to the tires or the wheels from the engine. So losses are less in this case. The disadvantages are less turning radius. The drive shaft may limit the amount by which the front wheels can turn, so turning radius is less. More weight on the front results in rapid wear of front tires. So you might have seen that in the case of front engine front wheel drive, the front tires jo hai, they wear out very fast as compared to the rear tires. So that is why every 5,000 to 10,000 kilometers, it is advised to change the tires. So front wale tires mein usko back le aao, back wale tires ko front le jao. So that change is recommended, so that even wear of tire takes place. Front wheel drive has worse acceleration than rear wheel drive, which is why most sports cars have rear wheel drives. So acceleration in the case of front wheel drive is poor. So hence all the sports car, they have rear wheel drive, front engine rear wheel drive, that is preferred for high speed cars. So these are the disadvantages of using front engine front wheel drive. Now third type of configuration is your rear engine rear wheel drive. So this is an example of the Volvo buses, modern buses that are there. In this, the driver is at the front, but the engine is not at the front. The engine is at the rear of the bus, like this. So this engine, it transmits the power to the rear wheel. So rear engine, rear wheel drive is there. Another example is your this station wagon is there, rear engine, and Beetle, the car, it comes with your rear engine, rear wheel drive. Advantages of rear engine: weight over rear wheels increased and traction while acceleration is good. Okay, तो grip जो है पीछे weight ज़्यादा हो गया है, and plus the bus or the car or the automobile is moving in the forward direction. So if the weight is more on the rear wheels, so this means the grip will be more on the rear wheels, and this will result in better handling of the vehicle. Front axle construction is simple. Absence of propeller shaft. Again, there is no propeller shaft and results in decrease in floor height. So lesser, the floor height is less in this type of configuration. Engine components mounted at rear of rear axle, hence more space is available in the front. तो engine जो है पीछे की तरफ है, तो आगे passengers के लिए more space is available. So these are the advantages of rear engine. Rear wheel drive. What are the disadvantages? We need to provide a separate cooling mechanism for effective cooling of the engine. Now, in the case of rear engine, in the case of front engine, when the bus or the car moves in the forward direction, the atmospheric air automatically moves in the backward direction and cooling takes place. But in the case of rear engine, we need to design separate cooling mechanism for engine cooling. Okay. More load on the rear side may result in overturning or oversteer of the vehicle. Okay, that can be a problem. Longer linkages are required for operating clutch, gears, and for the driver. Okay, तो clutch अब क्या है, वो पीछे की तरफ चला गया है. Driver is at the front of the bus, and the clutch is at the rear of the bus. Same gears are at the rear of the bus. So linkage is required to change the gear or to engage and disengage the clutch. That linkage is required are now longer. Okay, so that is another disadvantage of using rear engine, rear wheel drive. Now comes is your all wheel drive. Okay, in this all wheel drive, the transmission, the engine is placed at the front. Then comes is your clutch part, then is your the gearbox. Okay, transmission system comes in, and then we have two differentials here. One differential is attached at the rear axle. This is your rear differential, rear drive shaft, and then from this gearbox, another differential is placed on the side of this gearbox. This is known as the transfer case differential. This transfers the power from the this transmission or the gearbox with the help of a front drive shaft to a front differential. Okay, to the front axle also. So this means the power produced by the engine is given to all the four wheels. Okay. So hence it is known as all wheel drive. Okay, so the power is given to all the four wheels. So we have two differentials, front differential, back differential. We have two drive shafts, front drive shaft and the rear drive shaft. Plus we have a transfer case or a transfer differential is there. That is used to transfer the power to the front axle. So this is the arrangement or the configuration for all wheel drive. Okay. So in this case, the power is transmitted to all the four wheels of the vehicle. Okay. So this is another configuration of all wheel drive. This yellow is the engine, green is the your transmission. Okay, from the transmission, the power goes into to the rear wheels with the help of rear drive shaft to a differential, rear differential into the wheels, and from this transfer case, the purple one, this is the transfer case. From here, the power is transmitted with the help of front drive shaft to the differential, front differential, and from the front differential to the front wheels. So this is an example of a all wheel drive. Okay, so this is another arrangement of the all wheel drive. Here you can see clearly engine, clutch, gearbox is there. From the gearbox, the power goes into the transfer case of a all wheel drive, and from there to these purple are the two propeller shafts, rear propeller shaft and the front propeller shaft. From the propeller shaft, it goes, power goes into the rear differential and the front differential, and from the differential, the power goes into the rear wheels and the front wheels also. Okay. So in this case, all the four wheels of the vehicle are given the power. So that is why it is known as all-wheel drive. Okay. Now there is this difference between all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive is there. AWD is your all-wheel drive and 4WD is your four-wheel drive. Okay. Now in AWD, all-wheel drive, the power all the time is transmitted to all the four wheels. Okay. तो सभी चारों के चारों wheels के ऊपर power जो है वो transmit होती रहेगी. It will always be transmitted. But in a four-wheel drive, I can choose that do I want to transmit the power onto the front wheels or I want to transmit the power onto the rear wheels. So we have an option. Okay. Four-wheel drives can be engaged only in difficult terrain. In normal condition, power is only given to the rear wheels. Okay. So if your car is running at a normal, say off-road, so rear wheels will be provided the power. Okay. Now, if your car gets stuck in a mud, okay, or in some say in sand or somewhere in between, so you have a choice to transmit the power onto the front wheels. Okay. So this means in four-wheel drive, you have the option of transmitting power to all the four wheels. Okay. Or if you don't want to transmit the power to the four wheels, only the rear wheels will be engaged. But in the case of all-wheel drive, all the four wheels all the time are given power. Okay. So this is the main difference between all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. Okay. Now advantages of four-wheel drive is there is improved traction in dangerous driving conditions such as snow, ice, rocks, and other scenarios that can make the control difficult. By engaging both sets of wheels, traction and control improves. Additional weight contributes to better grip of the road. Four-wheel drive is great for those who like off-roading. Okay, who likes to go off-roading. The four-wheel drive is designed for those people. Disadvantage क्या है? Cost is more complex design is there, requires more fuel. Okay, four-wheel drive के अंदर obviously if all the four wheels are engaged, fuel economy will be less. Okay, added weight improves traction and control, but it also increases the braking distance. So braking distance also increases in the case of four-wheel or all-wheel drive. So that these are the disadvantages of using all-wheel or four-wheel drive. Now in this diagram, you can see the difference between using front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, and all-wheel drive. Okay, so all-wheel drive in turn is more smooth as compared to the rear wheel or front wheel drive. In rear wheel drive, if you move the steering, it will oversteer. Okay, in the case of rear wheel drive, it will oversteer. Okay, in the case of front wheel drive, it will understeer. Okay, जितना आप उसको मोशन दे रहे हो व्हील स्टीयरिंग व्हील को घुमाने के लिए, you will have to move the steering wheel more if you are using front wheel drive. Okay, and in the case of rear wheel drive, if you move the steering wheel with a small angle only, that will oversteer and your car will move more onto the left hand side. But in the case of all wheel drive, it follows the straight path. So all wheel drive, the control and stability in all wheel drive or a four wheel drive is more as compared to the rear wheel or the front wheel drive. So this is another advantage of using all wheel drive.